Alright, here's your warm-up to be written in your writer's notebook. We're talking about who started the fire. Before the end of the novel, it is implied that Mr. Logan deliberately sets fire to his cotton, in hope that it will serve as a distraction which might save TJ. Imagine that you are an investigative reporter who wants to get to the truth of how the fire really started. You are certain that it was deliberately set. Write the headline and article about the fire which would appear in the next edition of the newspaper. Now remember, you don't actually know for sure who did it, we just have some clues. And so you're someone on the outside trying to investigate what's happening. Pause the video here while the students write. Alright, here's your worksheet that you're going to be working on today. We've been talking a lot about plot and conflict and the increasing of tension, and now we're going to talk about climax and resolution. As you've been reading Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, you've examined the exposition and rising action of the plot of the novel. In the last two chapters, the events, characters, and tensions all converge to create the climax, followed by the falling action of the story. So part 1, looking at the climax. The events of chapters 11 and 12 become the climax based on what you've learned throughout the novel and what you already know. As you read, you infer and draw conclusions about what is happening, and you make predictions about what could happen as the book progresses. So, the directions for this part. Use the graphic organizer to analyze the events of the climax from each chapter. Portions of the chart have been completed for you. So, you have an event, and then you have what you already know, what you can infer, and what conclusions you can draw, and then predictions you make. So for example, when TJ becomes friends with the Sims boys, we already know that the Sims boys make fun of TJ behind his back. The book tells us that. Then what are some really logical guesses that we can come up with? We can guess that they're just using TJ for something, but they're not really his friends. And so we would probably predict that they'll continue to make fun of TJ, and when they get tired of doing that, they won't be his friends anymore. The next one, when RW, Melvin, and TJ broke into the store and knocked out Mr. and Mrs. Barnett, what we already know is that Mr. Barnett is mean to blacks. He also has a temper. So what we can infer is that TJ went along with Melvin and RW, but he didn't really want to. And so what we would probably predict is that this is going to be part of the split between TJ and Melvin and RW. TJ is getting very uncomfortable now, and there's probably going to be a conflict between them. So that's part 1, and go ahead and pause the video while students work on part 1. For part 2, the falling action, once the climax is resolved, the story unwinds. These portions of the plot are called the falling action, followed by the resolution. It is the portion of the story where any remaining questions are answered and the novel draws to a conclusion. The resolution of the story usually comes right after the falling action and is short. After all, the most exciting events of the novel have already taken place. The job of the resolution is to wrap up the story. Two separate events signal the end of the climax and the beginning of the falling action in Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. What are those events? So, in this chart, you have the event and the resolution of the novel, and then you should be answering the question, what problem or question does it resolve, and what problem or questions remain? So for example, it begins to rain, and the problem that solves is that it puts out the fire. The fire was a pretty big problem, burning the cotton, which is the Logan's source of income, and the rain solves that problem. So what problem still remains? How much of the crop was lost? Will it be enough for the Logans to survive on? Those are things that we go on not knowing. Another resolution event, about a fourth of the Logan's cotton was burned. That solves the problem or answers the question that they still have some cotton to sell. So what are the problems and questions that remain there? We know that they still have some to sell. We don't know if it's going to be enough, for example. And that's how part 2 of this worksheet goes. Go ahead and pause here while the students work. Part 3, we're looking at the resolution. In many novels and stories, you'll find the resolution answers all the questions. It may even give you a happily ever after resolution of the novel. You're probably already thinking that's not exactly what we have here. So look through these questions and write some good, thoughtful sentences in response to them. Draft your sentences somewhere else so you can get some of your brainstorming out of the way. In Roll Thunder, Hear My Cry, what are some of the remaining questions you have that are not answered in the final pages of the novel? What is the feeling you get at the end of the novel? Is there a sense of hope or despair? And explain your answer. As you learn the historical context about Roll Thunder, Hear My Cry, remember back to my background video, the civil rights movement won't begin for another 20 or 30 years after the events of this novel. Predict what you think life will be like for the Logans for the next 20 years. And why do you think Mildred Taylor ended the book the way she did? Why do you think she didn't write a happy ending for the novel? Really think about these questions and discuss them thoroughly before you write anything down. And the last little part, analyzing the title. Go back and find that poem in chapter 11. Reread it. What do you think the poem means now that you finish reading the novel? Why choose it for the title